Hello and welcome to Telecom TV. My name is Martin Warwick and we are at Mobile World Congress 2016 here in Barcelona in Spain. And I'm talking with an old friend, Vinay Saxena of Hewlett Packard Enterprise, and he is HPE Fellow, NFV Chief Architect, Communication Solutions Business at Hewlett Packard Enterprise. Vinay, great to see you.
Good morning, Martin. Good to see you all.
Let's get straight to it.
Okay.
We know that a lot of progress has been made by HPE in terms of the OpenNFV Labs. Can you tell us the kind of testing you've been doing there and give us some examples of what's happening and the results that you see?
Okay. So, as you met last time and we talked about what we're doing in performance area and testing of carrier grade capabilities within our entire NFV portfolio of offering, we've been focused on bringing together a set of solutions that give the carriers the confidence that we have the solutions that give them the right level of availability, reliability, performance, and the manageability aspect. Now combine all of these things together is what we call the carrier grade. Because it's not just one thing. I can't just say it's the performance that carriers need. They also need the manageability, they need the operationalization aspects to be handled. How do we handle reliability? So towards that end, we've been working with our partners like Intel, Spirent, and others in looking at how do we characterize what we call carrier grade. So when we talk about performance, how do we measure performance of packet processing, not just the packets coming in onto the network, but how do we handle latency in the Linux layer? How do we handle latency in the OpenV switch? So collectively, how do we measure end-to-end performances? How do we measure latencies across the entire subsystem? And then measure the convergence on how networks behave when something changes. Because carriers have very vast network, and if the convergence times are long, it takes for a long time for the networks to converge. So we have to look at the totality alongside the reliability, availability, and operationalization aspect. And towards that end, we have designed a set of tests that we've been conducting in our labs to measure end-to-end characterization of all of these attributes to give the carriers the confidence that once they deploy our solutions, they get everything that we've talked about, the line rate performance, the low latency kernels for running high performance switching, and the operationalization aspect, which is how do I do in-service upgrades? How do I do backup restores without having to shut down applications? So there is a lot of things that we look at when we look at carrier grade supportability within the carrier's environment. And together all of these things, we have done a significant amount of tests. We are ready to put some of that in the field and to in front of our customers, and we are looking forward to engaging with our customers on the dialogue on what do we need to do to improve it further to make sure that we are listening from them and adapting for the future tests that we do.
Has what you've been doing been to your expectations, or have there been surprises along the way?
Well, so it has met, and in certain cases we have seen better performances, better characteristics than what we really expected. So it shows the maturity of the software stack, coming from open source, coming from commercial products. So I think both the aspects are true, and in some cases we have seen some surprises also, and the surprises are more around how do we ensure we get end-to-end. I think measuring it on a component level has been known for quite some time. But when we talk about a carrier grade platform, it's not just a server, it's not just the storage, it's not just the NICs, it's the operating system, it's the virtualization layer.
Yep.
So measuring it end to end, and I think that's where getting the stack or the platform to perform, we had some surprises, but they were not something that we were unable to overcome. We were able to overcome those challenges, and we have some very exciting results that we'll be producing.
Thank you. Can we just focus on carrier grade for a while longer? It seems to me that NFV is a technology and has been presented to the world as a technology, an overarching technology that is NFV, network function virtualization, and it's the same everywhere. Can we look at how you actually define what carrier grade is? I assume it's to do with reliability, robustness, and so on. So how do you define carrier grade, and do the results you've been having meet the expectations and requirements of carrier grade criteria?
Yeah. So for us, carrier grade, like you said, is not just about performance. So let's talk about availability, reliability.
Sure.
Let's talk about performance, and not just the performance of packet processing. We have to look at performance at everything. We have various different workloads that run in the carrier environment that look at how I read data from the disks, because NFV is all about I/O. It's not about CPU packet processing.
Sure.
So looking at end-to-end performances, how do we manage the platform? And from that perspective, how do I do everything from in-service upgrades to patching the systems, doing backup restore? So operationalization aspect, because carriers have to deliver a 5.9 service, a highly reliable service.
Sure.
So how do I do measurements? So when I apply a patch, when I do an upgrade, what can I expect for downtime? Do I need to have downtime? Can I do maintenance windows, or can I do active backup, or active standby approaches? So we've been looking at the totality of the platform. So as I said, it's not just about measuring the performance of the CPU or the NICs or the disk I/O. It's measuring the totality, and across the system, when we do any manageability operation, what is the impact of that on the service? So we want to look at from the service perspective, how do I get 5.9? So what we did was, we not only ran the performance test, but we also said, let's apply a patch. Okay, when we apply a patch, what do we see an impact on the service side? Do we see an impact? And if we do see impact, what is the time it takes for us to deploy the patch? And what can we expect the carriers to put for management time, or the downtime or the maintenance window to do these kinds of operations? So we've been characterizing a number of these things, and we believe that we can achieve 5.9's reliability, we can achieve line rate performances, we can achieve very, very low convergence time, so we know our entire network is always in a very good state. So if you look at all those different vectors, we do believe that we have all the right set of answers and the data that we believe will prove to our customers that we do have a carrier grade platform. And I think if you look at what we are doing with our customers towards that end, look at the results with our NEP customers, our significantly large CSP customers, they have now started to adopt these systems, and they're going into the marketplace, giving us the confidence that we are on the right track.
Thank you. What benchmarks, Vinay, are you using to compare HPE Helion OpenStack carrier grade to other vendors that are out there?
So from a benchmarking perspective, there are certain benchmarks that are available that are publicly known, that are standards. So if you look at RFC 2544, which is an internet IMIX traffic standard to measure packet processing, then there are some standards that have been developed in Linux and open source around cycle test to measure latency of kernel. There are disk I/O performance measurements. So there is not a single measurement, unfortunately, but there is a series of measurements that you have to do, and a series of standards that you have to apply to measure the end-to-end capabilities of carrier grade. So there, as I said, RFC 2544, cycle test, disk I/O measurements. So there are a series of measurements and standards that we comply to. Comparing it to industry standards or what others are doing, what we have done is not focused on one subsystem. As I said, we are focused on the platform because that's what the carriers want.
Sure.
What we have seen in the industry so far is people measuring individual components. And what we want to do is to look at holistically the whole stack and ensure that we do performance characterization of the whole stack. And within that entire platform, I can always find performance for my packet processing, performance for my Linux layer, performance for my OVS, performance for my disk I/O, and so forth. So what we have seen in the industry, people are doing benchmarking for Open vSwitch, benchmarking for Linux kernel, but nobody does it in the totality, because what we did was we deployed some functions that our carriers customers will deploy and said, okay, let's run these functions, let's run the traffic through it just like a carrier does, and let's measure the performance. So we took some open source components from Clearwater, from firewall components from open source, and said, let's assume these are real sources, let's run the traffic through them, and let's see what the impact is. So we did the test using the real world functions and then started measuring how the performance would be rather than just benchmarking it on individual components.
Thank you. Last question. I like these events, things like this, to look forward from where we are now. So let's do that. I want you to sort of look at your crystal ball, if you would. I know we can't forecast much more than a few months in this game. It moves so quickly. But with the launch of the OpenNFV solution portal and the updates on existing OpenNFV products and so on, and continued customer announcements and all that, and now the results from the labs and the work you're doing in the labs, what's next for HPE's OpenNFV?
So what we want to focus on, Martin, is how do we enable our customers to rapidly get these services into the network. So towards that end, we have developed a set of services that we will be able to allow different orchestration systems, service orchestration systems, resource orchestration systems to discover from our catalog, and then we will expose a series of tooling that will allow them to design services from available service of catalog that we have, and rapidly deploy it within their environment on a trial basis or on actual go live basis. So where we want to take it is sort of the Apple's iTunes model, where we want to have a series of functions that are available in the catalog, stitch them to create meaningful end-to-end services, and then the ability for the carriers to take that service end-to-end and deploy it in a live environment. So go and discover what is running, what resources are available. I have a service description, go and deploy it on the available set of resources. So what we want to expose is that series of tool chain that takes functions that we have done onboarding and validation to the next stage, into their environments, into the proof of concepts, into the trial, into the production. So what you'll be seeing in the next few months is journey towards that. So we'll be releasing a sort of tooling, a set of software applications that will allow them to build new services, deploy, manage.
Great explanation. Vinay Saxena, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mark.